Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hot Seat this Friday, the 20th day of June 2025. And with me in the studio is a panel of the most experienced journalists and pundits to discuss the major events of the week. Let me introduce them. From the United States, representing the American imperial interests, a former Pan-African grandson of mine, now bought by the CIA, Emmanuel Cuesta-Barro. Now shall be calling him Emmanuel. Next to him, now heading the government media center, its own spokesperson, Obed Katurebe. And on my left-hand side, another agent of imperialism, representing the so-called Muzungu civil society in Uganda, Dismas Nkunda. Gentlemen, welcome to this all-male chauvinistic show. And our discussion this evening is going to focus on one issue, the war between Israel and Iran. Behind it, of course, the United States. I don't know, Pakistan, China, and Russia may be behind Iran, and then the European countries. We're seeing a serious, guys, shift in global politics. But let me begin with you, Dismas. In my entire life of studying the Middle East, I don't think Israel has ever been bombed. It has never received a bomb on its soil by any of the countries that has fought. Egypt, Iraq, maybe Iraq scarred missiles, but there were a few, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 in 1990, which were shot down. But this time, Netanyahu's house has been hit. I saw Netanyahu say it on Fox News that actually missile went through the window of his bedroom. Then the Ministry of Defense, the equivalent to the Pentagon, was hit. Their military intelligence has been hit. Their IT center, which manufactures the most advanced technologies for their planes and stuff like that, has been hit. The depot in Haifa that provides them jet fuel for their planes to fly has been blown up. Ben Gurion Airport has been hit and now it's shut down. You can't fly into Israel, you can't fly out. In fact, all Israel Airways fleet has been flown to Cyprus because they will be destroyed on the ground. So many of Israel's anti-defense systems either have failed, but they have succeeded in many cases, but there has been enough penetration to create significant damage in Tel Aviv, in Haifa, now this afternoon in Jerusalem. I begin with you. What do you make of this? Because initially, I thought Iran had been completely decapitated without any capacity to retaliate. It's the 7th day that they're still sending missiles.
But you know, Andrew, I think it's something that you said in the beginning before we even went on air. There is quite a lot of shift in terms of understanding of the various military capacities that the various countries, that particularly the ones that surround Israel, have garnered in over a period of time. So to the extent that Israel would think that they are the only boys in this game of war, is no longer. I'm certainly sure that even a country, can you imagine the last time that we are discussing that even Palestinians could be able to capture Israelis? It could never been, ever heard that, given the nature of the military system that the Israel has, including the Mossad and what, to be able to capture Israelis. And how many were there?
So there's 400?
Yes.
About 240, yes. Because they killed about 1,200.
So this one is nothing new. It's something that Israel maybe did not look forward for, did not think that could happen, that a country like Iran can have the capacities that it has, and Iran is still now laughing back to the bank.
Obed, I saw actually Ben Gavir appeared on the street and was attacked, an extremist minister of Benjamin Netanyahu, on the streets, and he was being attacked, and he said, yes, I liked his honesty. He said, we underestimated Iranian capabilities, but with the best intelligence that Israel has.
But Andrew, like this man has said, these neighbors of Israel and their enemies anyway have not been sleeping. I'm even tempted to think that for them to sustain that kind of assaults and bombs landing for 2 weeks non-stop.
No, 7 days.
This is not, we're going to a second week non-stop. This might not be Iran alone. I don't think Israel is sleeping. They may not be talking. I mean, Russia is sleeping. It could be supplying them something. China could be supplying them something. Even North Korea. And like you said,
Pakistan. There are 3747 Boeings from China that landed
absolutely
in Iran.
In
Tehran. So yes. They don't know whether they came to carry things away or to bring things in.
Most likely because Iran has been a critical ally of Russia. With Russia against Ukraine. So I don't think those three countries or even more than 3 are sleeping. They must be supporting the ally. So Iran might not be Iran alone, although they have really also substantially grown in terms of science and military development. This could be another war, and that's why Trump, even when he was talking big, wanting like to come all out, there are all signals that probably that will be the beginning of Third World War, because the other blocks are with Iran. They may not be talking big like Trump is doing, but they are with him. I have no doubt.
But let me assume Russia could have been involved from a tactical and strategic point of view. Russia shares a border with Iran, but it's quite a distance. When the Israelis hit Iran and targeted its air defense systems, I thought they had destroyed all its radar posts so that it couldn't be able to launch these ballistic missiles anymore. Within 48 hours, Iran was able to launch them. And I saw somewhere online that it seems Pakistan, which neighbors Iran, they share a border with Iran, and which is also afraid of Israel. If you take out Iran, you are getting near us. Yeah. And we're also an Islamic country. There is a suggestion that Pakistan could be the one that immediately moved in air defense systems to resuscitate, to help Iran restore its air defense systems, so that it's at least the radar systems to be able to launch these ballistic missiles, which means this conflict really can't be localized, as Obed is saying.
I think this is a continuation of what happened on October 7th, because I think something fundamental changed on October 7th, and I guess it explains Israel's genocidal actions in Gaza right now, because for a very long time Israel had built this deterrence that no country was willing to risk attacking Israel, lest it would be it would have hell rained on it. But these poor Palestinians being able to take this attack to the heart of Israel, and then inspiring all these other Hezbollah and other groups to take over, not to take over control, but to chase Israelis from northern Israel and the rest of the region, I think changed the security dynamics for the region. And Israel, in its response to Hamas, it was trying to reinstate that deterrence, to say, look, there's a price for attacking Israel. So what Iran's attack shows, that was all bluster, that something has fundamentally changed, and many of Israel's enemies know that Israel can back, but it cannot inflict as much harm as we thought it would initially, maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago. And in that case, Israel finds itself in a difficult position, because for it to reassert that deterrence it had before October 7th, it had to go against Iran, it had to go against all these other actors. It was only a matter of time. But now, Iran has shown that they can actually inflict harm. And it's not that they are killing Israelis, but the psychological terror that they're inflicting on Israel, that normal life has frozen for the last 7 days. Schools are closed, markets are closed, airports are closed, and they can pick and choose where in Israel they want to throw their missiles. And the much talked about, much vaunted Iron Dome system seems to have loopholes, because if you have significant, for the first time I saw the Israelis complaining that a hospital had been bombed in
and the hospital is also next to a launch site for
air defense missiles, which is the same accusation people have been alleging against Israel.
As they're saying Hamas has defenses, yes,
in civilian infrastructure. So the Israeli minister was on air saying that Iran should be punished because they're attacking civilian infrastructure. So it's a difficult place that Israel and its allies find themselves in, because immediately after October 7th, I think the consensus was clear. Israel has the right to self-defense. Russia had attacked Ukraine, so Ukraine had the right to respond. Now that hypocrisy is being tested, because in this case, who has the right to respond?
Well, we come to this. Israel could say, look, Hamas was a proxy of Iran. Absolutely. Hezbollah was a proxy of Iran. The Houthis are a proxy of Iran. So the first thing Israel did, they had to knock out the Hamas, they had to knock out Hezbollah. Of course, they've been fighting Hamas for 2 years. It doesn't seem to be a concluded war, because Israel is still stuck in Gaza. But they said they have decapitated the Hezbollah, they have removed the Assad. Now, they want to also remove the regime in Tehran, then they can be secure. What do you think of such an analysis?
That's where the problem lies because it's like Kwesi is saying. It's just thinking that other people are sleeping, they are not doing their homework to be able to understand on what is Israel. Just imagine now what other countries are thinking about Israel. Is this the Israel we used to fear? And in particular, because there's always the notion that Americans are going immediately to do what? To help them. But the Americans also are becoming a little bit, you are describing how reluctance. We have countries which have really even said Israel, what we are doing is wrong. And these are Western countries, such as I think it was France and the UK. So the point is, everybody, the kind of sympathy that Israel thought that would get is no longer there, and therefore they are facing their own music. Exactly the irony that you are speaking about, crazy. The same things that you have been doing is the same things they are doing to you. You are and they the ones the first who sent bombs to Iran.
You know, I've been thinking, Obed, about Israel's security dilemma. If I was in Benjamin Netanyahu's shoes, most likely I would have done what he did. I see Iran piling up missiles and missiles and missiles. Then they have this nuclear program, which one day they can convert into nuclear weapons, even if they don't have a nuclear weapon now.
But Israel too has nuclear weapons.
Yes, of course, if you have nuclear weapons, you don't want others to have them. You don't want your enemy to have them. So if I was a strategist for Israel, I would say, look, we need to destroy these people's capacity to build these missiles, because the more missiles they paid up, the greater the risk to us, and they can also go to a nuclear weapon. So the only way we can be secure is by preemptively attacking them and destroying their capacity to threaten us. You see, that's the security dilemma every country faces.
But Andrew, let me ask you a question. Do you think, and it's the question, that's something that we're discussing, we're speaking about the intelligence of Israel. Would the intelligence of Israel know what capacities are there? If you go to destroy, you destroy. And why did they then still had the capacity to be able to attack them, to attack Israel?
And that is, let's take another, when we shall come to that, because I think then Israel made a strategic miscalculation. They thought if they do the first strike, they will decapitate Iran and make it incapable of any response. Iran's response has even surprised me. I had even sent a friend a message saying, poor Iran, because they felt they had finished it, that decapitated its ability to retaliate. The fact that it has retaliated, and it's now day 7, in fact, this afternoon they sent 100 ballistic missiles onto Tel Aviv and Haifa, and even Jerusalem. I can't believe that they still have capacity to send these ballistic missiles, and they have full control of the Israel airspace, because anyway, when we come back, we shall be discussing that. Welcome back to this edition of the Hotseat, featuring a panel of the most experienced journalists and pundits to discuss the major events of the week. We have Dismas Nkunda, Obed Katurebe, and Quest Tavaru. So, gentlemen, let me first make my pitch before I come to Obed. Israel's calculation is like this. You know, Israel has 3 air defense systems. Dismas and my grandson Kwesi. Israel has 3 air defense systems. One is called the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome is supposed to intercept these small missiles sent by the Houthis, the Hamas, and Hezbollah. The Iron Dome cannot intercept ballistic missiles, because they're very fast, they come at a very high speed. So they have the David Sling and the Arrow. And I think America also gave them the Patriot system. Those are the other 3 systems. Their own, David Sling and to intercept ballistic missiles. Now, the technology of interception of ballistic missiles it's like you shoot a bullet and I also shoot a bullet, I hit you. So the accuracy rate is...
I hit the bullet you fired.
Yes.
The 2 bullets meet.
Yes. I must fire a bullet to hit a bullet. Now remember, a ballistic missile moves at 14 times the speed of sound. It's very fast, about 34,000 kilometers per hour. It's very fast. Now, what happens is the accuracy rate is about 40% or 38%. That is one. What the Iranians actually did at the beginning. Also, let me tell you another thing. To produce one anti-ballistic missile, one missile to shoot a ballistic missile, costs 5 times more. The defense is 5 times more expensive than the offense. So if you spend $600,000 building a ballistic missile, the other guy needs to spend $3 million. And that's what Israel actually spends, $3 million to shoot it down.
One missile?
Yes. Guy spends $600,000, you have to spend $3 million. Now the problem Israel has faced is double whatever. When these guys have accumulated so many, at the beginning, they launched their old anti-ballistic missiles, which are fake. And Israel expended a lot of its anti-missile batteries shooting this old technology. So yes, they kept sending the fake ones. You realize that in the first few days, they do not have hit very good targets. But now the accuracy rate is not improving. It's simple that now they're deploying hypersonic missiles and much more advanced modern technology ballistic missiles. So, and it's anticipated if Iran has another 3,000, 5,000 anti-ballistic missiles, Israel is already running out of batteries, and even America doesn't have enough patriotic batteries to shoot them down. In which case, if this continues in the next 1 week, Israel will be completely defenseless in the air. Completely defenseless. In which case, that's why Israel has officially appealed to the US to intervene. That's why Trump is threatening to enter the war, because they miscalculated. They thought they could decapitate Iran and make it incapable of any form of meaningful response. And they were taking it from last year. You know, last year they had those retaliations. Iran was calling Israel and saying, we are going to send you 100 missiles in advance. Then they sent these old, slow ones, and Israel shoots them down. So the Israelis were duped into thinking this is these people are weak.
But Andrew, that's why you get a problem. That's why you get a problem of saying that given the thought process that we have about Israel and Mossad and the intelligence system and the military superiority, and they can't be able to detect that these guys are duping us.
This one, let me come in. Like
well, that's so powerful to become arrogant.
Thank you.
This must we also be mindful of what America is. And attack on Israel is an attack on America. I want to take you back to the statement.
I think so too.
The statement of George Bush Jr. when the Twin Towers were bombed. In his statement, he said, "Make no mistake, the axis of evil must be finished." And who are the axis of evil? Iran, Iraq, then Sudan,
North Korea,
Syria, and Afghanistan. Business in Afghanistan was finished. And Bin Laden, you people are saying, hey, they can't get Bin Laden. They finally got him and killed him. Chapter closed.
Obama.
Well, you see what I'm saying? The American agenda.
Okay.
When they said the axis of evil, Afghanistan was finished. Syria, it didn't take them a long time. Russia came in, stopped the what? They are so good at the war of attrition. They reorganized, created the internal rebellions in Syria. Assad is gone. Sudan is gone. Iraq gone.
Yemen.
The Yemen gone because they
Lebanon gone.
There
are 7 countries. The only one remaining
was Iran.
It was Iran.
Now Iran has attacked Israel. Make no mistake. Yes, they have suffered embarrassing challenges and whatever. But I'm telling you, America must be studying every approach, every weakness, every what. Iran will collapse. If it means flying in the serious bombers and bust those bunkers where those missiles are coming, they remove them. They can't afford a humiliation in the Middle East in the face of this axis. Bush called the axis of evil. Iran was the only country standing, it will fall.
Okay,
but for me, the question is,
you agree with him that Iran will
even if that were to happen, the question is, would Israel's position in the Middle East remain the same? Because for it to be a regional power, or whether it's as an extension of the US or any of its Western allies, it needed to prove that you don't want to mess with us. And I think that has been tested in the last 4 years.
Remember, these guys are at war with 7 countries. Now.
It doesn't matter. The question is, what is the end state? Even if it destroys all these other countries that it's at war with, because there's what you call the tools of national power. What makes America a powerful country? One, it's diplomatically strong. It has an edge on information. It has control over money, the economy. In this case, for Israel,
technology.
Yes, military. On these 4 criteria, I see Israel losing on each of them. Diplomatically, it's in a much weaker position than it was before October 7th. Although initially the world was of the view that, look, what transpired on October 7th is horrendous and Israel needs to defend itself. In its defense, it's ended up committing a genocide. No one wants to stand out and say, look, we stand with Israel, we're going to give them diplomatic backing in the fight against Iran. The many countries that are showing support to Iran right now, they may not even agree with the policies of Iran, but they feel as a principle of international law, Iran stands a chance to defend itself, but also you have an we're talking about bullies. We're saying Ukraine needs to be supported because we want to show that you can't be a bully in the international system, and somehow we're allowing Israel to be a bully. You go after Syria, you control part of that country, you destroy Lebanon, you destroy Yemen.
Actually, right now is occupying Palestine, Syria, and Lebanon, 3 countries. Now it is attacking.
Yeah. So even for the US and the Europeans to maintain their hegemony on the world, they need to justify their support for Israel. And it's increasingly becoming difficult to do that diplomatically. It's also becoming increasingly difficult
drives Israel
in terms of the economy, because there are so many other players.
What drives Israel? First of all, Israel has a population of 9 million. Iran has a population of about 98 million. Israel has a land area of about 20,000 square miles. Iran has 600,000 square miles. So then comes the question, what is it that drives Israel policy? Because even if they were to bring about regime change in Iran, then they'll open and have influence there. They'll have open hostilities with Pakistan. Because Pakistan neighbors Iran and it's another Islamic country.
But I think it was either
from there, will they also now be involved in Afghanistan?
Let me answer Andrew. I think we've all agreed that Israel is a frontline state.
For the US.
For the US.
He's the 51st state of the US
Absolutely,
state.
Absolutely. And these wars of US using Israel as a proxy country have not just begun. They began a long time ago. Remember when the monarch of Iran ended of Shah, and now the Islamic State emerged. Again, they went via Iraq and attacked Iran. There've been so many countries trying to make sure those Arab, maybe radicalized Arab nations do not stabilize to grow certain military capacities. So it's been on and on and on and on, and it's not about to stop.
But guys, I should tell you one of the problems we face. You know, one of the greatest military strategists, Count von Clausewitz, said that war, he talks of the fog of war. War is characterized by uncertainty. Let's look at scenarios. It turns out Israel does not have the technology to penetrate the deep bunkers where these nuclear sites of Iran are. Only America has bunker-busting bombs. So either America has to come and do the job itself, or it has to give them to Israel. America has been reluctant. But I've seen other analysts saying that in those other mountains where they are, even those bunker busters cannot reach those areas. You need a nuclear bomb to penetrate. And Trump himself has mentioned that he can use nukes. Now let me assume...
And Trump will.
Yes, there is a commitment and he does so. You see, what then stops Russia from nuking one of the cities of Ukraine to force a surrender? Because you, America, have used nukes. How do you stop me? Assuming now America nukes Iran and Russia nukes Ukraine.
Stops Pakistan from nuking India.
Well, let's leave those. But what would be the position of America on this and Europe? Because they're also involved in a war there in Ukraine. Because I keep telling my friend Conrad Nkutu that the problems of war is that you say, yes, they have crossed Russia's red lines and it has done nothing. Yes, you can cross 10, maybe 50. What if it reacts on the 51st? Because you don't want to be messing with the nuclear armed state. Then all of us are incinerated and we die. You see? So I don't know what... Please ask this myself, best question. What is Israel's end state? Because once you know what the aim is, your end state, then your plan becomes... What do you think is the end state of Israel in this?
I think the end state Obed was trying to describe, I don't think that they have a roadmap of anything that is good. They miscalculated. That's my thought. If they don't get the backing of the United States as it should be, they will.
But I think they want regime change. So if you remove the government, let me assume they even succeeded. I don't know whether it's... You see, governments rarely fall under social circumstances. But a population, a country of 100 million people, you remove a government, who do you think is going to replace it, and what's going to be
they'll do it the way they've done in Syria. You know, there are the two parties. There are this one of extreme Muslim fundamentalists, and the liberals have been gaining ground. In fact, this other president won with a small margin. So they must be looking at divide, and there is a substantial opposition. It's not like these other Arab states where they are closed down. Iran is vibrant. They have vibrant democracy, and for them they do vote. They're not like these other monarchies where they would not vote at all. So I think they're looking at substantially breaking them. And now create an opposition the way they did with Iraq, the way they did with Assad, the way they did with even Afghanistan or even Sudan.
But the question is, the assumption is that the opposition in Iran is willing to side with the Israelis just because they are tired of the Ayatollah. Is that a price they're willing to pay? Because
it's
if
common
that was the case,
common practice.
we would not see the protests
before
support
Gaddafi was killed. There was no known opposition in Libya to even take up arms, and also they scatter that country. So once, for example, if they succeed in killing Khomeini, you'd be shocked how many people emerge. And
we have taken a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to this edition of the Hot Seat, featuring a panel of the most experienced journalists and panelists to discuss the major events of the week. Dismas Nkunda has escaped from the studio speaking Kinyarwanda. I don't know whether there is chaos in Kisoro. The guy could not even speak English, but finally he has returned. I think the security guards have returned him here. And of course, I have Obed Katurebe from the Media Center and Questabar, who has just returned from America, having been bought off by the Americans. So we come back to the situation we face. I just want to know, what do you guys, I begin with you, what do you see as the end state of this conflict? Do you know what is the light at the end of the tunnel? America intervenes, what happens?
I think the best thing for the rest of the world, really, we can't afford another war. Ukraine and Russia entered the conflict more or less the same fashion, and it's been 4 years. If it continues, it will last either of the two world wars.
Ukraine and Russia, or NATO and Russia enter the conflict?
Regardless, by the end of this year, beginning next year, it will have gone on for longer than any of the world wars. And I don't think the world can afford that. So the best we can hope for is a peace deal. The question will be, will it be a more favorable deal than what was in place before Israel launched those attacks last week? I think increasingly it's becoming difficult, because even those countries that were hesitant to listen to Israel or Iran's argument now feel obligated, because we cannot be talking about Russia being the bully and one that needs to be punished, and Ukraine, the weak state that needs to be supported, and then in the same sentence say, look, Israel is exempted from that. It can attack its neighbors as much as it wants, but it can't be attacked. So it's going to be very difficult for Israel and its allies to try and cobble through a deal that's much better than what was in place before. But also the question is, for Iran, what stops them now from going for a nuclear weapon? They might become another pariah state like North Korea, in which case it would further destabilize that region, because why shouldn't Saudi Arabia go for the same now?
I was looking at a different outcome, in the sense that, I don't know, I must have read it somewhere, that as the more Israel gets dominant, it makes other neighbors fear, because one of the reasons for a rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran is the growing strength of Israel. Normally in the international system, whenever one country becomes much more dominant, it tends to induce others to coalesce, to create coalitions in order to balance it. Yes. But I had argued earlier that I actually feel strong sympathy for Israel. If I put myself in Benjamin Netanyahu's shoes, leave the miscalculation. All of us, many people miscalculate. I'm sure even it's possible Putin may have miscalculated on Ukraine. The Western world also miscalculated on Ukraine. They thought that they could impose sanctions on Russia and it collapses. Maybe Russia felt that the regime in Kiev would collapse quickly and the thing end. But you never know what will come out. It turns out the Russian economy 3 years later is growing faster than the Western European economies, even better than the American economy. At the same time, it turns out that Russia has not made significant progress in terms of geographical advance in the last 3 years. So I don't think anyone expected that, which also comes back to Israel miscalculation. It's understandable. But if this must be in the shoes of Benjamin Netanyahu, any leader of Israel, you have a guy there developing ballistic missile capabilities, and every day saying, I'm going to wipe you from the surface of the earth, always threatening to finish you off. What are your options? especially when you have limited strategic depth, like Israel. You have a very small population of 9 million on a small patch of land. One of the reasons why the attack on Israel is highly effective is they are concentrated in very small areas. It's like attacking Singapore. It's just a state. You attack Hong Kong, wherever you drop, that's where the population is concentrated. So what were the options for an Israeli leader facing a government the other side, acquiring more and more ballistic missile capabilities and saying, I want to wipe you from the surface of the earth?
I think it's a discussion about whether someone can even imagine that Israel can start a new deal with Iran, given the nature of the current conflict that they have. So to that extent, unless he opts out and says, you know what, guys, you have really hammered me well, let's sit down and talk.
Yeah, but I was asking before the conflict started.
Yes.
Assuming you are in Netanyahu's shoes, the other guy is always threatening, I will finish you off. Or for that matter, you have no right to exist. But you also get intelligence that is developing greater and greater capabilities. What is your response? Because mine would be, I must destroy your capacity to develop those capabilities. Because once you reach a certain level, then I may be the one to be left out.
The same thing that we are speaking about. We are saying that maybe they did not understand the capabilities of the other country. I think their intelligence system was not at par with what was being developed in Iran. To the extent that by the time they realize that these guys actually are this, it's very difficult. And that's why I'm saying, then you get a fallback of saying, either we go for Obed's idea that the Americans bring in nukes. Is it the code what?
No.
They come in with
Andrew, I was not agreeing with when saying that Israel attacked. But Benjamin Netanyahu takes us to when Hamas attacked him. That was not Hamas. We all know that was Iran. But I mean,
how far are you willing to go? Because Israel also funded Hamas.
What I'm saying, at the end of this all, already foreign European.
No, but you need to answer this question.
Which one?
Israel was one of the key funders of Hamas. The chief of military intelligence of Israel has revealed this. They gave them $5
Which year was
billion.
that? Maybe that was something.
No, up to the time of the attack, Israel was specifically Benjamin Netanyahu was giving money to the government in Qatar to pass it on to Hamas.
Sounds like a conspiracy theory, but anyway.
No,
it
is the chief of intelligence. I can play for you the video. The chief of intelligence of Israel.
You're right, but this is what I'm talking about. War is war. Nobody is a winner in war. You don't know how much Iran is devastated. You few images, you see people driving in millions running away from city centers. So be it Iran, they have suffered substantial damage.
Without a doubt.
Be it Israel. And already the European ministers are meeting with a node of the American State Department. So at the end of the day, everybody will come out with serious bruise to probably give total peace an option, because whoever is in land will not be again endlessly arming Hamas or Hezbollah to continue throwing bombs on Israel.
But on that one, the question will be, what will be the terms of that new deal? Because the new deal will have to be signed in light of this new reality. That one, Israel no longer enjoys the privileges it enjoyed just before October 7th, and that its position in the region has somehow diminished, depending on how you assess that. Diminished diplomatically in terms of how many members of the UN can, in principle, support Israel's position on the region.
No, what I'm saying, they are all going to cede the ground.
Adjusted to that reality, yes. So
the two countries will cede the ground. You can't be Iran and you have lost all your high command in one evening. But and you think that's something serious?
But it's not between the two countries. It's about this the kind of dynamics that will exist in the region, because Israel certainly has the right to exist, and so does Iran.
Yes.
And so does Syria. So you can't be talking about your right to exist and you are annexing significant chunks of your neighbor's territory, in this case Syria.
Well, I think the challenge we have is that security is indivisible. And that's the whole problem with international law, rather international relations, in the sense that I, as let's say Syria or any other country neighboring Israel, I may be afraid of Israel and I begin building significant defense capabilities to protect myself in case I'm attacked. But my neighbor may not see my defensive intentions. He may perceive of the capabilities I'm building, I may see them as menacing and offensive. Because you see, if you are in a country, you can know, it is very difficult to know the intentions of your neighbor, but you can easily know their capabilities. Even if they had no premeditated intentions to attack you, they are building these capabilities purely for defensive purposes. You can never know whether at some point in the future these capabilities may tempt them to become offensive, to become menacing and aggressive. So because of that, countries are always worried. One country's defensive posture becomes one country's security becomes the other country's insecurity. True. You see, and that's the security dilemma you always face.
So how do you mediate that? You mediate that through diplomatic channels. Israel seems to be against that because among the victims of these initial attacks were Iran's negotiators. So essentially saying we don't believe in the peace process.
That's correct.
So the changes that are going to have to happen in the region are that, one, we've got to have an understanding that now the dynamics have changed and Israel will have to accept certain things, certain demands by its neighbors, and its neighbors, hopefully they'll also have to accept some of the demands that the Israeli state makes of them. But it no longer has the overriding moral and military power to compel others to do the things it wants them to do.
Our understanding of what Israel has been in the past, ever since it became a state, do you think that's something that they are ready and willing?
By the way, we're living in a completely changed. We're living in a completely changed world where we did not know that a nuclear power like Russia could be bogged down in a small country called Ukraine, or that America would spend 20 years fighting the Taliban in Afghanistan.
And then hand power to them after 20 years.
So it's us who need to adjust to that new reality, that there is no such thing as powerful and weak states in the international system anymore. Right now, because powerful and weak are relative. You can be powerful in the sense that you own nuclear weapons, but this guy has a few drones that will make your nuclear weapons redundant.
In fact, that is what the war in Ukraine and the Houthis in Yemen have taught us. Literally, Ukraine using drones has just the powerful Russian Black Sea fleet out of the Black Sea. The Houthis have just shut down the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden from international commercial traffic by just using drones. And America bombed them, realized it was not achieving anything. Trump has entered negotiations with them. Isn't he negotiating with them? Initially, he said he could intimidate them. So war is changing. But guys, when we come from the break, one of the things I want us to discuss is, for me, I think that is the point Kwesi is making, that the myth of Israel's invisibility, its Iron Dome, its David Sling, its arrow, has been broken. And let me tell you, that opens a Pandora's box, because if now people see that,
we can hammer him,
we can attack you. If I was Israel, I'd begin thinking of, what is Egypt going to do?
Exactly.
What is Saudi Arabia going to do? What is Jordan likely to do? This is what happened to Hitler. Hitler from 1939 went through a series of military victories until in 1941 December he reached the gates of Moscow and he was repulsed. The myth of the invisibility of the Wehrmacht was broken, and from that time everyone was willing to stand up to him, and this for me I think is a critical turning point for Israel. We'll be right back. Welcome back to this last segment of this edition of the Hot Seat, featuring Kwesi Tabaro, Obed Katurebe, and Dismas Sinkuda. Guys, so in conclusion, let's look at the global picture. So, I have seen Israel make an official request to the United States for entering this conflict. Let me assume, given the power of the Israeli lobby and the friendship between Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, America enters this conflict. Would America enter only through air power? Let me assume they enter through air power. If you cannot control the ground, then you cannot take out that government. That is one. So America puts the boots on the ground as well. But that means America gets bogged down into that. It's bogged down in Ukraine. It will get bogged down in Iran with boots on the ground this time. But meanwhile, you have China preparing to take over Taiwan. And how much resources does America have to be involved in different theaters of war at the same time? Because if I am an American decision maker, I've spent so much money, I think 250 billion now, trying to fund a war in Ukraine. There, at least it is a good investment for America. You are using on the money, you are not losing a single soldier, but weakening an opponent. what is the strategic value of the United States having to fight Iran and Iran closing the Straits of Hormuz? So fuel prices go up, then you have inflation in America, and Trump will lose the midterms for sure. The Democrats may come and want to change course, although I know the American arms industry lobby will maybe get the Democrats also to fight, and the Israeli lobby will keep the Americans in the bogged down. What happens with the Taiwan? But also when America goes there, what is the attitude of Russia and China, who are friends of Iran and North Korea? Because they are likely to support America's enemies in Iran indirectly and cause it a lot of trouble. What do you think? What are America's options there?
You know, given the kind of experience that the Americans had in Afghanistan, I would imagine that they would be thinking twice about whether this is another front that they would want to open. It is going to be expensive. Kwesi will tell us, since he's the one who is the latest from the US, to tell us how the economy is performing and whether this is something that, of course, the lobbyists, the Jewish lobbyists in particular within the United States, they're very...
You can call the Israeli lobby. It doesn't only include Jews, by the way. It includes a lot of right-wing Christian fundamentalists.
Yeah, I know. But let's leave it at that. So the point is, there's quite a lot of lobbying. Of course, the war industry.
There's the war industry and the Israel lobby.
Yes, the war industry is very powerful, which might force certainly the Americans to be able to have boots on the ground. Is it a very good idea? I doubt. I don't think so. Because like the thousands and thousands of people that you said about, I don't think that if the Israelis can't be able to know and understand and have the intelligence of what exactly Iran is capable of, even now they may not even have the capacity of knowing how many boots the Iranians have, and therefore they may have to encounter another serious beating that they got in other countries.
So we come to you, but you are the one saying America will enter, because if I'm an American president, I'm sure they may be overwhelmed by the Israel lobby, the arms lobby, but they have to strategically have to think. And Trump also has to think about his mega base. It's against these international involvements. I do not know if they've been following all these supporters of his, Tucker Carlson, this guy who was his chief strategy, Steve Bannon. There's this very articulate Jewish journalist. I saw him on TV saying, Trump, we are moving out from you. But there's so many Trump supporters. Not Ben Shapiro, another guy, I can't remember his name. So brilliant. But anyway, ladies and whatever it is, even on Fox News, many of Trump supporters are coming out and saying, no, you don't want a war. So if you're Trump, you have to look at the interests of the arms lobby, the Israel lobby, your friendship with Netanyahu, but also your own mega base. That coalition you built, yes. How, for you to achieve any of the things you promise and you want to achieve, you need your base with you. So any decision by America to go has to look at internal contradictions in America. And American society is also heavily divided and on the edge of civil war. Let no one lie to you. There's a book called Mindfuck by Christopher Wiley. Has anyone of you read it? They went with Steve Bannon doing a lot of research. In America, they found this is a country teetering on the edge of civil war. America may think civil wars are going to happen elsewhere. But this guy's book shows how America is so heavily polarized and it can explode. Then, of course, you have the international situation. You have China, you have Russia, you have North Korea, who may come to the aid of Iran. Then you also have BRICS. Remember, isn't Iran joined BRICS?
It is.
And many people beginning to shift away from America. There's so many calculations. It's not just that you have power, you are going to bomb there. It is that you have so many other countervailing forces against you, both domestic and international. How does America work out those?
America will not put boots on the ground. But I do believe...
How sure are you?
No, this is what I'm telling you. Largely, they will increase the Israeli capacity to heavily bomb Iran to the ground and force Iran into peaceful negotiations.
What of Iran's allies?
They're a little bit subtle. They're not as aggressive. Russia has its own war with Ukraine. And remember, forget about it, but it being a nuclear power, it's not economically strong like USA.
China?
China, yes, they've come, but I was reading something back. Defense spending. USA was spending over 700 billion per year. The second was China. China just staggering at around 120 billion. Russia was at 60. So it's about money. So they bombed that country to accept it.
No. China, you have to look at purchasing power parity.
No, I was talking the defense spending.
Defense spending, yes. You see, what we call by purchasing power parity is you ask yourself how many sailors, ships, drones, missiles China is able to produce, and the money it has to pay in its own currency. Okay. So for America may pay a soldier. It costs America $300,000 to sustain one soldier. Maybe China it costs $50,000.
Okay.
So it changes the balance, and also too, America has a lot of legacy technology, old technologies. China can make just one missile, a ground-based missile that for $5 million it can take out an anti-craft carrier America has made, and it costs America $12 billion. This is what I'm telling you about what the Ukrainians have done to the Russians and what the Houthis have done to commercial shipping.
This is what I'm saying. They'll bomb Iran to levels that Iran must accept peace. Peace that will be peace with Israel, in which case there will be clear terms, no supporting of Hamas, Hezbollah, even Iranians themselves. They've really had substantial beating. So America will only force them. Already ministers, European ministers and whatever are already beginning peace talks deal. So it's about dismantling Israel to levels that will accept peace, and to a great extent to America's interest. I don't want to say as Israel's interest, because this is an American project. This is the way I see it, Andrew.
But this is what I'm saying. So you're saying that America goes to bomb Iran to the Stone Age, and Iran's allies keep quiet. China and Russia do not? Because you have to calculate that.
That's true.
To dismiss that they want to do anything, it could also be a strategic miscalculation. It's likely, but I would have to consider what is the attitude.
Well, the attitude is not so strong, and that's what I'm saying. Russia is bogged down by its own war. China is distant and has always played safe. It is concentrating.
It can send more bombs there, because right now Russia's military production is at its highest. So it is able to output a lot of military stuff.
True, but I wouldn't bank on the Chinese. Chinese are a little bit, they're minding their own business, especially trying to surpass America in terms of economy.
China depends on the Middle East. Unlike America, actually, China depends on the Middle East for oil, up to 79% of its fuel supply, something like that. Actually, America is self-sufficient in oil. Would China allow, and a lot of Iranian oil actually uses old ships to go to China. Would China let its own economy be destroyed because of
and that's why now probably shipping will call Netanyahu, call the man Khomeini, and the peace deal will be worked out.
I think the last word on this, the world, I keep saying this, the world has significantly changed, and I think we're stuck in the old models of analysis, because we're talking about the big 3 or 4 major powers. What we're forgetting is all these other emergent powers and what they might be thinking about. You think of countries like Indonesia, I think it's the largest population of Muslims in the world. What will Indonesia's stance be on seeing a Muslim seeing a Muslim country being attacked? While China has its calculations with the US, what would happen if the US is bogged down in that conflict? There's also Brazil. There's also all these other players that are new on the scene. South Africa, see the damage it inflicted on Israel's reputation by just taking it to the ICC. What would it do in this particular situation? So I think the world has changed, and when we see these conflicts, there are really contradictions that are trying to resolve themselves, and it may not be apparent what will emerge out of this, but with time, over 15, 20 years, we might say, well, this was the point in which Western ascendancy started to change.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. It has been a good discussion. Our listeners, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be right back next week on Friday. Good evening.
The hottest